Blog Talk Radio.
If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
Good morning, and welcome to the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr., and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. If you would like to get in contact with the show, you can do so by calling 516-453-9921. That's 516-453-9921. Or you can also Gmail me, which many of you have done, at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com, and I will get a chance, hopefully, to read them, and I will, and Mr. Fuller will address your question or maybe your comment. VGQ, Victims Guaranteed Qualifications. Yeah, we'll do that too. Let's see here. Mr. Fuller, generally, he is on the line live from Washington, D.C. Let's say good morning, Mr. Fuller, and how are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
Okay. One of the things that people must understand, you have to look at. I think you have to look at this thing from a victim standpoint. We are victims of it, and Mr. Fuller starts out every program with that statement that he made back in 1971, and I want to put emphasis on that as we go to speaking today. It is very, very, very important that you understand exactly what you are dealing with. And Mr. Fuller, you made this statement back in 71. You just repeated it just a few moments ago, but I want to bring special interest or emphasis as we go on with this particular program today, being the 18th of February, 2020. If you do not understand white supremacy, could you just read that for those who are new to the show, those have already heard that, but we have new people coming in all the time. Could you read that and then explain that before we go head on with anything else?
All right, it's there in both of the volumes of the compensatory, United Independent Compensatory Code System concept that people can get by going to producejustice.com. I put it in the 2010 version, rather the extension of the book called the Word Guide, and also in the updated, revised, expanded edition, 2016 of the basic book. That's updated from the 1984 edition. And I put it in a page separate from anything else, right at the beginning of both of these volumes. It says, if you do not understand white supremacy, and in parenthesis, racism, if you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Now, I originally wrote that in this form in the year 1971. Now, I didn't underline the word everything else, or the two words, but they could have been underlined. That means exactly what it says, because everything among the people of the planet here in 2020 is connected with the system of white supremacy if it has anything to do with people at all on the entire planet Earth. Now, the system of white supremacy is a system that's designed to do two things. Dominate, that's number one. And number two, mistreat non-white people, people of color. That's what it's designed to do. A lot of people call it white nationalism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's in its functional form, in the way it actually operates. You can't have white nationalism, or you can have it if it's just a nation separate from everybody else. It doesn't interact with non-white people at all. None. Zero. They don't even come in contact with each other on the high seas or anything. They don't speak to each other. They don't trade with each other. White supremacy is separate from this thing called white nationalism, like some people say, that there is such a thing as that, separate from, or they imply that it's separate from white supremacy. No, it isn't. The so-called white nation is a world nation. It dominates all 9 areas of activity of the affairs of non-white people, people of color. Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And that takes in just about everything that people do from one minute to the next. So I know people are tired of hearing this, and I'm tired of hearing it. I'm tired of hearing it, me talk about it at this late state. We shouldn't be talking about racism at all in 2020. This generation of people, white and non-white, all over the world, should say, racism, what's that? I never heard of anything like that. And some people should be saying here in 2020, oh, that's something that was a system that they had, a kind of a world government they had set up some time ago. And it was connected with something dealing with people doing things to people that they shouldn't do on account of the color of their skin. And people should be saying here in 2020, what? I'm talking about somebody about 35 or 40 years old should be saying this. What? What are you talking about? The color of the skin? People used to do business based on that? And they say they did all the world's business based on that. It wasn't anything else they based it on. Well, what about money? I thought that money, the exchange of money had the expedient way of doing that. You can move goods around and people could trade with one another and all like that. They know money was a part of the deal, but it was a part of a system of racism. Everything was a part of the system of racism.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't anything that happened. A train didn't move unless it was a part of the system of racism. Agricultural goods were not grown unless it was a part of the system of racism. And racism was white supremacy. Nobody grew anything, anywhere, and it moved from farm to market without the white supremacists having their hand in it, the major hand, directly, indirectly. Nobody went to a school without the white supremacists say so about what they're going to learn and what they're not going to learn and how it's going to be taught and passed down from generation to generation. And people should be saying here, right now, oh, that's absurd, based on somebody's color. That's what you're saying. You're trying to tell me that. No, I don't believe that. That's what people should be saying in 2020.
Yes, sir.
All over the world, that they never even heard of anything like that. It should be so archaic. So that means it's a lot of work to be done.
A lot of work to be done. Before we go on to the program, let's start off with a caller here. Marcus, you are now on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Okay, thanks, Mr. Fuller. My question is, I am wondering if Mr. Fuller can advocate this solution that I have written out here. It's a solution that will solve all the problems. Mr. Fuller, I heard him on the Carl Nelson show, and I've heard him before, but he was saying that there's a code that once that it just makes sense. You can check the code, you can try it out, and then once you have that code, then you take it from there. It's a code. It just works every time, 100%. So here, I'm wondering if what he thinks about this. Here it is. The government creates money. Therefore, the government cannot owe money. If it issues $7 million to everyone, including homeless, that would solve all the problems. Keep prices what they are today. For example, 49 cents a pound for cabbage. $7 million to everyone in an account means that at 7% interest rate, each person has $700 a day to spend without touching the principal. $6.5 million to everyone in an account at 7% means that each person has $650 a day to spend without touching the principal. It's 100% economically possible to do this because the government cannot owe money. The government creates money.
So what is your question?
So my question is, can Mr. Fuller advocate that and create dialogue around that? And then also the question is, does he think that could work? Just giving everybody with a Social Security number $7 million and keeping the prices the same.
All right, Mr. Fuller?
I don't know enough about the mathematics of that. So, therefore, I just say that comes under VGQ, Victims Guaranteed Qualification. That's addressed to the person who is talking. If he considers himself a victim of racism, that's a proposal that people could take into consideration. I don't know enough about the details of that or even the principle of it to even comment on it other than to say that the white supremacists could do it if they wanted to do it that way or some other way, maybe dozens of ways that they could do it, because when you're the master of the planet, you can do what you want to do. If you want to do it, you can snap your finger and things just start happening. That's all. I mean, when you are the most powerful people on the planet and you tell everybody what to do, you can arrange whatever money type arrangement you want to do whatever job you want done. The only reason the race problem isn't solved right now, this minute, is because the white supremacists don't want it eliminated. They say, we got a thing going here that we intend to, we may dissolve it at some time, but we'll do that when we get ready. And right now we're not ready because that's self-evident that we're having this conversation, that it exists. Racism is still alive and well. And the racists say, well, I don't see any point in dissolving it. It's the best system that anybody's ever thought of. It's not a what a lot of people would call a perfect system. This is from the white supremacist viewpoint. They practically say that right to everybody's face. Nowadays, here in 2020, they say that this is the best system that has ever been thought of. Nobody's come up with a better one. So, I mean, just swallow it. And, what are you going to replace it with that's better than what's going on now? It's the most productive system that has ever been recorded. in recorded history for everybody.
Well, what do you?
And so
well,
therefore, yes, go right ahead.
Oh, sorry to interrupt, what if we keep the system of racism, white supremacy, but give everyone, including the white supremacists, an additional $7 million, but just keep the prices the same? Something to think about. Because I agree. I agree with everything you're saying. They can easily do whatever they want, but there's no real reason why they wouldn't just give everybody $7 million, including themselves, an additional, but keep the prices the same. That's the solution, because everybody with a Social Security number.
Well, I have a question. Would that be beneficial to black people?
I think absolutely, because nobody would have to work.
Okay.
And,
now, well, then I have to ask this. You say because nobody would have to work. Well, now, the white supremacists, I started off this program saying, the purpose for the system of white supremacy is to dominate and mistreat people of color. Now, what do they get out of dominating and mistreating? They get three things: fun, glory, and material comfort. That's the white supremacist mindset. That's what keeps them going. That's what makes them get up in the morning and want to get busy. When black people might want to just sleep late or whatever, or go somewhere and dance, or have, we love fun. All people love fun, but the white supremacists get their fun out of mistreatment. That's why they like to glorify instruments of death, swords, guns. They worship guns. They worship anything that causes death. But something that helps a person to be healthy, that's somewhere on the back page of obscure books and whatnot. They like death, even among themselves, before they begin to operate among the non-white people of the world. They got to the place where they, first of all, like death. They glorified death. Murder mysteries in all their books. There's more murder mystery books than any other type of book on the shelves throughout the world. I'm just guessing now. I'm not sure, but I tend to believe that because as a young person, I used to read Raymond Chandler, James M. Cain. The High Window, Murder My Sweet. That was one of my favorite books by Raymond Chandler. I read that book over and over again as a teenager. Raymond Chandler was a famous mystery writer. Then there were Earl Stanley Gardner, just one book right after another, turning them out like hotcakes. About what? People killing people. Not books about how to make somebody well if they had a disease or something. No, that wasn't the popular thing. If that had been popular, even in the little quote-unquote segregated school where I went to, if that type of philosophy had been popular, and I wouldn't have known about murder mysteries or anything because it wouldn't be available. Just a young person, 8 years old, 10 years old, and trying to learn something. So if everything, the movies and all this, was about nurturing people, about growing food, about how to handle money in the most constructive way, we would have had those books because those were the books that were being given to us. So I would have been raised on that rather than sitting up spending hours reading one murder mystery right after another. Couldn't get enough of them. I heard that a new one came out the other week. And by whom? By Dashiell Hammett. That was another famous author at that time. James M. Cain. And then Earl Stanley Gardner. This had them all over the place. Just one book right after another. Murder mysteries. So I could have been using that time if, that if I went to a bookstore or a magazine rack or something like that, or pocket books. They had, what you call the little, pocket books at that time on the racks in the drugstore, and that's what I would be getting. And that would be entertainment for me because I wouldn't know any better than that.
Mm-hmm.
But the white supremacists have put out nothing but glorifying death. And glorifying the death of non-white people is supreme.
Yes.
A dead black person is wonderful. That is something to behold. That is a great thing to look at. One picture right after another, page after page, of a black person being gunned down by armies or bombs dropping on them, non-white people running down roads screaming while all types of bombs are falling from the air and whatnot, and shells. Oh, that's wonderful. Man, that's beautiful. Look at this. I mean, hey, man, did you see that one turning over and over in the sky as that bomb fell and blew him up? It blew him to pieces, blew his head off. Oh, wonderful. That's a head flying, a black head flying through the air, separated from the body. Now, that's beauty. That is beauty. That's the white supremacist mindset.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Marcus, for your phone call. Let's go to Steve. Steve, you are on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, gentlemen. I will attest to what Mr. Fuller is saying about murder and killing being a large part of the society. And I can't remember the actual stats, but somebody went and went and looked at all of the movies that are on Netflix and on regular cable, and there was an astonishing number how many movies depicted a murder, and then how many movies depicted violent scenes, right? How many movies depicted sex and violence and intertwine them, and it was an astonishing number. And that's very true. If you go look at a fictional movie online, more than likely there's a murder or a killing or violence in it. It permeates the society so much that you don't even know it's there. We don't even recognize it anymore. So I agree with Mr. Fuller that way. The other comment that was made about giving everyone $7 million, in the economic system that we have, or even really most others, if you were to give everyone $7 million or $10 million, that doesn't change anything because the prices would then go up accordingly. The prices are based on what the market will bear, right? That's why if rich people move into an area, the housing prices go up. So if you may have $7 million, but houses may cost $6 million, right? If you were to give everybody money. So that won't work.
Mm-hmm.
That won't work. I had a question for Mr. Fuller.
Go ahead, sir.
With this being an election year, a so-called election year, and I think from what I'm hearing, there's a lot of black people that are not going to be participating in this election if there's not some kind of substantial or substantive something for black people to go out and actually vote, because now it's quid pro quo. Black people are starting to want something for their vote. If black people stay home, and I don't vote, but I mean, if black people stay home, what should be logically the next step to getting the things that are needed, whether it's education, whether it's in healthcare? Should black people now start to organize, to start to do this stuff for ourselves, to pool money, what should be the step in getting the things that black people need for the daily, survival and to thrive?
Well, I say that everything we get in the prison called the system of white supremacy is a world prison. That's one thing I've been trying to get people to focus on. The white supremacists have made the entire planet a prison for people of color. So it works on prison principles. The principles of slavery, and we are prisoners of war, and that's slavery. So therefore, whatever system that would work for the benefit of black people, the prisoners, you can't work outside the prison because you are inside the prison. So the prison warden makes the decisions. It just depends on what you can impress the prison warden to do or not do. That's why I use a movie as an example called Shawshank Redemption. And I say you can study that movie scene by scene, scene by scene. Might have to look at it maybe several times over. I've seen it maybe about 15 times. Just looking at it because it's well done, in my opinion. And you learn things about the principal character in there from Andy Dufresne, that was the character in the movie, and how that character interacted with the other prisoners, not expecting much from them, of course it wasn't much to expect, except just the things that got them in prison to start with, all kinds of things to harm people, okay, and for the most part. So he was harmed, but he took that in stride. But also his interaction with the prison master. He always focused on the prison master. Prisoners have a tendency to always focus on each other. And that's why you have prison riots. That's why you have prison gangs, whatnot. They focus on each other rather than trying to figure out the entire prison system and how to operate within that system in order to get out of that system. And that's what Andy Dufresne was doing throughout the movie. That's the greatest lesson in that movie, throughout the movie. He was always thinking in terms of the big picture. And that's how black people should be thinking about the entire world, because if you're a black person on the planet Earth, you're a prisoner of a prison system called the system of white supremacy, based on your skin color. That's a crime. Being a person who has color in his or her skin is a master supreme crime in the system of white supremacy. You were born a criminal. You were a criminal before you were born because you were in the womb of someone who was going to deliver a person of color into this place called the planet Earth. And the white supremacists say that's a criminal act. And they prove it's a criminal act by punishing you in all 9 areas of activity, even before you're born. And after you're born, you really are drenched in it, because they let you know that since you're here, because first of all, maybe you shouldn't even be here. That's the kind of attitude that they express. But since you're here, you are designed to be mistreated. Designed to be mistreated based on what? The color of your skin. That's your prison uniform. You don't have any business walking around with color in your skin, except as a target for mistreatment in all areas of activity. Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, mistreatment in law, mistreatment in politics. No matter how you vote and whatnot, you're supposed to be mistreated. That's supposed to be the result of it. Otherwise, the white supremacists are not satisfied with that. Hey, these dark-skinned people are not being mistreated? How am I going to get any fun out of that? What's the point in living? All creatures love fun. All creatures love glory. All creatures love material comfort, squirrels, birds. We like to be comfortable, and we like to have fun doing whatever we're doing, and we like to get glory, which means what? What is glory? Glory means somebody appreciates you. Somebody looks up to you. The white supremacists want to be looked up to at all times. Get on your knees, boy. Bow down to me. Look up to me. Shine my shoes. All right? In order to do what? Glorify a shoe shine? Well, that's a part of it. But mostly, get you to glorify me. Bow down to me. Make me feel good. All right?
All right, Mr. Fuller, the music is playing, so I have to do this commercial break. All righty. You are now listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Now, to get in contact with the show, you have to call 516-453-9921. I'm going to repeat that, 516-453-9921. Or you can Gmail me, which I hopefully get a chance to read, the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y. The numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com. And I will try to get in contact, try to read your Gmail and go from there. We have technicians that are on the line that are helping you to get through your call. And as a matter of fact, if you would like any other information, simply go to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And all the information that you need about books, publications, the books that are distributed in different countries, all that information can be obtained by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And in a few moments, I will have Mr. Fuller talk about his book that you can go to producejustice.com and go from there. All righty, Mr. Fuller. Now, as a victim, and we're focusing in on racism, which is white supremacy. Now, you mentioned about, and I've heard you on several programs, that this must be eliminated completely. But then something has to happen once you eliminate it. And you said to replace the system of white supremacy, racism, with justice. Now, is that compensatory justice, meaning making up for what we don't have?
Absolutely. What you don't have is justice. What is justice? Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. That's number one. And guaranteeing that the person that needs help gets the most constructive help in all areas of activity. Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. All areas of activity, all the time. That's what would justice ideally would be. Justice has never existed in recorded history. Nobody practices justice. You can't practice justice in a system of white supremacy anyway. That's contradictory. So you have to replace the entire system with a system of justice. Now, can you get fun and glory and material comfort out of a system of justice? Theoretically, yes. Now, I can't prove that you can, but I believe that you can.
Okay.
But that's why, I wrote the book. If you can't replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice, there's no point in replacing the system of white supremacy. That's the whole point. You don't want any other form of the same old stuff. A lot of people say, well, we need to replace white supremacy with black supremacy. Now, few people, not many, have said that down through the years.
Yes, sir.
But in other words, you're talking about maintaining the system that you still have, but have it in blackface. That's not an improvement.
Yes, sir.
That makes there's nothing logical about that at all.
At all. Yes, sir. Okay. Let's see here. All righty. Let's go back to Marcus. Marcus is back. Marcus, go ahead. You're on with Mr. Fuller.
Yes, Mr. Fuller. I hear what you're saying. I just want to let you know that I emailed you the statement. It appears as though, logically speaking, what you're saying is that the white people they like, whatever the racism and the evilness. But I'm just calling back because I think what I'm suggesting, I'm wondering if you can add that to the section that I just emailed you to your code, because I think it could be a good addition. I think that basically it is the solution. It is the solution, and I just think that if you can get somebody, an expert, to check the numbers and check the feasibility, then I think it's good to advance that to the entire planet, because at the end of the day, white supremacy is elite. They try to, so it's like they don't have the same numbers that we have. And then also, I just wanted to mention that the alternative to me is that the question is, Mr. Neely, what the alternative, Mr. Fuller, the alternative, is this correct? It seems the alternative would be that they would either kill us all off, or we would start our own thing without them from scratch. Or what would be the alternative?
Well, all I say in the compensatory counter-racist logic is exactly what I've been saying, what I said just a few minutes ago. The whole idea is to replace the system that we have with a better system, if that system will work. Now, a lot of people say a system of justice will never be. You can't have justice. That's impossible. You can't have a planet where no one is mistreated and the people that need help the most get the most constructive help. That can't be done. Now, I'm starting with the premise that it can be, that the naysayers against that formula, I'm saying it can be. Some years ago, someone told me, Fuller, you keep talking about this thing about racism and whatnot and white supremacy. He said, the race problem can't be solved. It can only be discussed. And so I thought about that, and I said, well, if it can't be solved, there's no point in discussing it. Why would I write a book about a problem, page after page after page, about what a problem is, and there's no solution? There's a problem, but no solution. I believe that in this universe that we have been given by the Creator, if people make a problem, and the system of racism is a problem made by people. Its fashion is put together by people. And that thing put together by people, anything that people put together, people can take apart. Now, I'm not sure that is correct, but I believe it's correct.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, philosophers, mathematicians, and whatnot. So what the gentleman is saying about something that we can try, I'm not naysaying it because the code does not allow me to do that. That's another part about what I say is the wonder of a code. I can't say that something won't work. I certainly can't say that when it hasn't been tried. I'll know that it works when it's tried.
Okay.
So I don't have to be the person who goes out and says this because I don't know enough details about it. But the person who has just said it here on this program, that's a part of the code right there. He's already doing it by putting it on the air. This is going all over the world. So people can consider that. That's how the code works. It's not Neely Fuller's code. It's a code that works.
It's a code
Anything that works for the betterment of the people of this planet is a part of the code automatically,
now,
whether you call it that or not.
Okay, now, with that being said, Mr. Fuller, before we take the first call, this call and then the Gmail, which comes from Blackspeak, which I've been trying to get to, but we will. Could you repeat again what you wrote back in 1971, which we started out the program with, that statement? The very beginning, you said you had a separate and have a separate page for that, so people can understand exactly what you're talking about and what we're dealing with as a victim, right there.
Yes. If you do not understand white supremacy, and I have in parentheses racism right behind the word white supremacy, because that's the only form of racism there is. If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you.
There it is, right there.
And I put that at the front of the book because that, you don't go past that. There's no point in even, if you don't agree with that, or you think that you may agree with it, you can just put the book down and go no further. If you say, hey, if you take the position that there is no such thing as white supremacy in the first place, there's no point in continuing reading the rest of the book at all. You don't have to go past that.
Yes, I emphasize that and wanted the show to open up that way because in my studies or in my conversation with people, this statement just rings true if you do not understand. And I can't hardly get past that word right there because they just don't understand. That's why I have them read it and read it and read it until it gets in their system. Chow, you're next up. You have a question for Mr. Fuller?
Yeah, actually, I do. Mr. Fuller, I got a question with a quick follow-up if you don't mind.
Yes,
go ahead, Chow. Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. So in the past, you have mentioned how the black vagina will become obsolete and how it will be replaced with a certain anus that's not really countering racism.
You mean the white man's anus?
Yeah, you know that, Bobby.
Okay.
I have my suspicions on how you came to that conclusion, and I'm going to be frank, by someone who has seen pornographic material throughout the last few decades, unfortunately. I see the direction and how that can be possible. But can you tell us explicitly how, without being too graphic, how you came to that conclusion? And because I understand how I can concur with that analysis, but how did you come to that conclusion and was able to pretty much say this 20, 30 years ago, maybe even longer, and now it's actually becoming evident?
Because 20, 30, 40 years ago, I began to see the same thing you were saying. Just like I was reading mystery novels. I looked at magazines, Penthouse, Hustler magazine, all those magazines that were coming out. I've seen them, and also a lot of different type of books put out by different companies and whatnot, with all kinds of pictures in them and whatnot. And I saw a lot of pictures, and I didn't understand it at the time. I say, this is supposed to be a men's magazine, men's entertainment, it would say on the cover. And I would see lots of pictures in there of two females all wrapped around each other naked. And I said, now, what kind of message is that for a male? A male goes with a female. That's the way, usually. But here's a male magazine showing a whole lot of females who are in bed with each other. Now, I didn't know the reason for that, And, I didn't understand it, but there was a lot of things I didn't understand. I didn't understand, as much as I do now about white supremacy, okay? So that's how I came to that conclusion. And it's right in your face. I mean, they're teaching this. That's what they're teaching, and now they're teaching it right in schools, I understand. They wasn't teaching it that. They were not teaching that when I was in school, but now they're teaching, about little Ronnie has 2 daddies, and isn't that wonderful? Isn't that an improvement? I mean, this thing called sex, somebody said it's so restricted. It shouldn't be so restricted. Sex is not restricted. Sex should be anything that you want to make it. Call everything sex. You can have sex with a tree if you want to. You can marry a tree. Marry your sister. Why not? It's all about love. See, that's the cover for it all. The minute you say anything in a question way, they say, oh, it's about love. It's about love. Now, you believe in love, don't you? Well, everybody should love and spread love as much as they possibly can all over the place. Unlimited love. And how do you spread it? By new types of sexuality, all right? You can't have love without a new type of sexuality now. That's too restrictive. That's what, and then the white supremacists, like everything else. Now, see, I'm not saying, I'm not disparaging people who are so-called gay or lesbian, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm saying what the white supremacist agenda is, because first thing they did with non-white people right out of the gate was that they made it impossible for black males and black females to get along with each other, which is why you have that now. Our relationship, so-called black male, black female, is a total mess. It's a total disaster. And every black female will verify that. That's why a lot of black females are following the white supremacist guide now. Hey, you got to give up on that black male. He's a loser. Because I have made him a loser. Throw him in the garbage can and marry your sister. That's an improvement for all you black females. After all, you love your sister, don't you? Or you ought to. Marry your sister. Why not? You marry all your sisters if you got 3 of them. Okay? So that way the black female's vagina becomes obsolete. So what's left? Well, then the white male steps forward. What's left is my beautiful anus. So all you black males who are looking for somewhere to go, you're disgusted with the black female. You call all kind of names and all like that. You write songs saying that your sisters and your mothers and whatnot are all a bunch of scraps, all a bunch of trash, and ought to be treated like that, because I taught you to think that way by setting it up so you would think that way, and setting it up so that you all are always at each other's throats. So come on over now and look at my big white moon and get into it as much as you possibly can. And that's the future of the black people. That's what they're putting out.
All right, Mr. Fuller, you have definitely just gone into my next question / point, VGQ or whatever you want to call it. I called a few weeks back, and there was a lot of talk on the internet about, did I give up on black women, and do I think that, being with a white woman is better than being with a black woman or whatever. But you basically just enlightened me, which I probably should have already known, but you basically have enlightened me that this was the plan to begin with. So, this is not a question, but what I want to say to those people on the internet is I would love to have a constructive relationship with a black woman. I would love to hear more black women call into this show, act like they're interested in the code, act like they're interested in being in the comments, whether it's a repost on YouTube or whatever. But it turns out you have explained my very situation where I'm trying to be constructive. I want to be constructive with black women, but I guess what the white supremacists have done to us over time is made it so that it's, like you say, it's near impossible to have that type of interaction because of so much planning that they put together. So I say all of this to say to the people on the internet, to the people around the world that's listening to this, we need black women to call in more. We need black women to engage more and act like they're more interested, because there's a lot of black guys calling in to the show, a lot of black guys following it. But when it comes to every black man that I speak to about codification, they might subscribe, but they all have the same issue where they're not finding black women that are subscribing. So when I said to me potentially being with a woman or a non-black woman that's not white, I got a lot of heat on the internet. But the thing is, I don't want to be in a non-constructive pressure type situation being with a black woman just for the sake of saying, oh, I'm with a black woman, because the thing is, I'm here to make progress. So in closing, Mr. Fuller, can you give us some type of advice on how we attract or even reach black women to speak about codification and they don't get bored or act like, we're lames because we're talking about constructive behavior and they want to smoke and drink and dance and, get into bed before they want to read the code? Thank you.
Oh, sure. I mean, that's the way they've been trained. After all, we all been trained. So black males can't look at the black female and say it's all your fault that we're in this shape. And the black female can't look at the black male and say it's all your fault. It's the fault of racist man and racist woman. We are raised in their prison. So our values are what they teach us. They teach us what's important and what's not. They teach us. We weren't getting around in the Northwestern Hemisphere. We wasn't going around doing some of the things that we're doing, even just recently. Just in the last 20 years or so, they said, lots of white people, were glamorizing tattooing. So black people started tattooing. Now, one of the ugliest things you want to see is a tattoo on black skin, to me, because, it doesn't look like a picture. It looks like a sore. That's what it looks like. So you're going to pay somebody to make your skin look like you're covered with sores? I mean, we're not thinking, because the white supremacists have taught us not to think. Just do, Negro. Just do. Don't think about what you're doing. Just do it. Do it. Why? Because I said so. After all, I feed you, don't I? I house you, don't I? I know everything, don't I? When you need information, you come to me, don't you? Because you can't get any from anybody that looks like you. All right, money or anything else, because they don't have any. See, that's what we mean by understanding white supremacy.
Yes.
So all of our so-called culture comes from them. We call it black culture. It's not really, it's just culture. Culture is what you do. And what we do is just copy after the white supremacists and try to imitate them on empty. I mean, because we're not in position. And not another thing, white culture is white supremacy. So it's absurd for us to be doing all the things that make no sense that they do, but everything that doesn't make sense, they bring it to the black people. Say, oh, we came up with something last week that makes no sense at all, but we'll do a little bit of it because we can afford to do it. As white people, we can afford to do a lot of things that do not make sense. So we come out with some artificial food and whatnot. I mean, hey, is it something that's nutritious? No. Is it something that will break the body down? Yes. Well, let's take it over there to the black people. They'll eat anything. Just put a little coloring in it and some sugar, and that's it. Hey, they'll grab it, and they'll walk around getting sick, filling up the emergency wards, and just keep coming. It's by the cab load, by the bus load. by the ambulance load. See? So, getting back to the point. Yes, we black males are going around saying, I'm looking for a real woman. I mean, a woman that understands me, a woman that can deal with me, a woman that want to do something constructive. Well, according to what I've written in the book and what I've observed and what I see and what I understand from understanding white supremacy, you're not going to get it the way it ought to be. Now, I'm saying that flat out. I can't repeat that enough because I haven't repeated it enough. There's no way under the system of white supremacy that black male and female relations can get to be what they ought to be, simply because the system will not allow it. If the system allowed black males and black females to get along with each other in harmony and peace and in a constructive manner in everything that they said and did, there would be no need to get rid of white supremacy. Hey, we can just roll right along with it. But the system will not allow that. That's one thing they definitely can't allow. They're going to have us in conflict with each other, but we can minimize that conflict by understanding white supremacy.
Exactly.
I can go further on that.
Okay. Thank you, Chow, for your call. Pardon me, Mr. Fuller. Okay, Black Speak. In the remaining time that we have, finally got a chance to get to you. Victor in Canada, hopefully I can get to you also. Mr. Fuller from the Gmail, Black Speak says this. Mr. Fuller, there has been a lot of conversations about stop and frisk, which was a crime prevention tool used by Mayor Bloomberg of New York. Mr. Fuller, what does the code say about crime prevention tools like stop and frisk?
Well, it's like everything else. If you sense that there's danger and you figure that people are walking around carrying something that they may do harm to people unjustly, it's fine if you make sure that you are doing it for everybody who is suspected of being guilty of that, of carrying something on them with the intent of doing unjust harm. No one should do unjust harm. That's not just anywhere. So, no, you're not in favor of that, except that's the condition. Then it's okay to stop and frisk. I don't mind being stopped. And someone asks me questions. I mean, if they're doing it for everybody, I mean, that happens to be around, all right? I mean, now, if you're just going to single out white people as not people that you're going to stop and frisk, automatically that's a problem, okay? Because white people, some of them, go into a black church and shoot up the place.
Yes.
Kill everybody in there, I mean, and walk off and laugh about it, okay? So, did you stop and frisk that person before they went in? So now, let's see. Let's do a head count here, and let's look at the color of the person's skin that you are stopping and frisking. Okay, and other factors may come into play. The age and condition of the person. Do you stop and frisk the person who is in the wheelchair? I mean, now, let's get a list of people who you're going to stop and frisk here. I mean, what the characteristics are of each person. Otherwise, what? You don't have what? The one thing you should always be trying to produce, justice. So it's just that simple. You always ask for that one thing, justice, guaranteeing that no one is mistreated, and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. That should be the one thing that everybody should be thinking about every minute of the day on the entire planet, regardless of who that person is. In every situation, wait a minute, is anybody here being mistreated? Is anybody here, it's just 10 people in this room, is anybody in this room, there's just 10 of us, Is anybody in here being mistreated? That should be asked on jobs and everything else. And then the next question is everybody here who needs constructive help getting that constructive help? And does the person that needs constructive help the most, is that the person you start with?
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Heard the music here, so we have to conclude the first hour here. And we're going to start the second hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr., and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Now, if you'd like to get in contact with the show, you can do so by calling 516-453-9921. And let me say this. Thanks for listening for those who have listened to the first hour and continue to listen to the second hour. Also, you can reach me by going to my Gmail account, which is 7, the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. And on that site, and if you'd like to get the materials that Mr. Fuller has, his books, which we're going to talk about in just a minute here, you can go to producejustice.com. Listen to the program by going to producejustice.com. And everything that you need to know about this program and about the materials and everything can be ascertained by going to producejustice.com. I think they even had podcasts available of our former shows that you can also view and for your listening enjoyment. I think Mr. Fuller is going to get a lot of calls. We have a caller on the line, but this is what I want to do now. Again, you're listening to the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. I'm your co-host, Mr. Bobby. 516-453-9921. 7, the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com is how you can get in contact with the show. Now, before we take this caller, Mr. Fuller, briefly, can you just speak to your book, because we didn't have a chance to get to it in the first hour, so I want to make sure that we can do that. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, you can get the book by going to producejustice.com, producejustice.com, and what will come up on the screen is a brief description of what the book is about, which the book is about the system of white supremacy and what an individual person can do on a daily basis in the 9 areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. The book is segmented into those 9 areas, and you can just pick up. The way I recommend that people read the book is just turn any page, in any area of activity, or you can narrow it to whatever area of activity you're interested in at the moment, whether it's religion or politics or sex, whatnot. It's a huge area there. Sex is a very important driving force, so it's a big section there about do's and don'ts, recommendations, just suggestions. People don't have to do it. It's not dictatorship. It's up to the victim of how you are going to conduct yourself in these 9 areas of activity in an effective way, presumably against the system of racism. But go to producejustice.com and how to get the volumes and how to listen to programs associated with the volumes is at that website, producejustice.com. And like I said, the volumes are directed to the individual victim of racism.
Okay. I got a feeling that you are going to be inundated with calls, especially with that remark about the white man's anus being the new vagina. There's a lot of people that may call you about that. But on the line right now, we have Jordan. Jordan, you are on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Hello, can I be heard?
When I call you, you're there. Go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Fuller, Mr. Bobby was right. You're probably going to get a lot of calls and a lot of comments about the black female vagina being obsolete and the white man's anus replacing it. And I just wanted to say that I've been seeing that a lot lately, not just in the porn industry, but just recreationally. I've been seeing a lot of what I would say big black men hanging around or entertaining small little white men for some odd reason. And I just can't help but to think that these interactions are sexual. I see it when they're going to lunch together. I see them playing basketball together. I see them working out together. And it's always a big black man with a smaller white man. So I really do believe that the sentiment that the white man's anus will replace the black female's vagina. And I also wanted to talk about or ask you about interracial relationships. A guy just called, and it sounded to me as if he was making excuses as to why he doesn't, date black females because they're not on code or what have you. But there is no production of justice, in my opinion, if black men opt to start dating white females or opt to start dating non-black females in general, because those non-black females, those white females are not on code either. They're not looking to replace the system of injustice with a system of justice. So in my opinion, there are no valuable results that can come from those type of sexual relationships. And in my opinion as well, it's all sexual. Black men having sex with white females, that's just sexual. They're not doing anything constructive. The white female is not trying to help the black man become an actual man in the system of racism, white supremacy. And again, they're not eager or even looking for any ways of ending the system of racism, white supremacy. But one thing I did want to ask you, Mr. Fuller, is do you think black men opting to be in relationships with non-white, non-black females is constructive?
No, because in the system of white supremacy, according to the code and according to logic, the system of white supremacy is a prison system. So when the prison masters racist females, white supremacist females, in the system of white supremacy, have sexual intercourse with the prisoner, then that is what you call abuse. That is what that is on the part of the white supremacists. Sexual intercourse takes place between equals, according to logic. One is not subordinate to the other. It's a cooperative setting for both people engaging in it in all areas of activity, not just in the sex itself. So when you have a prisoner of war having sexual intercourse with the prison master, the prisoner of war is being taken advantage of. It's the same as child molestation, which is what, that's why I don't say that black males and black females are what we call, in popular language, adults. It's impossible for me to be a so-called adult person in the system of white supremacy. I have never grown out of childhood. I was born a child. I never grew into manhood. I never became a man. I'm just an older boy. When the white supremacists call me boy, they're telling the truth. It might anger me, but they're telling the truth. And I shouldn't evade the truth, because that is the truth. When you're born in prison, you are reduced to childhood if you're in that prison, as long as you're in it. Regardless of how old you get, you are still a prisoner. And prisoners are in a childlike position. They have to ask permission to do everything. Go here, go there, can't do this, can't do that. What food you're going to eat. That's all decided by somebody else. Okay? What your future is going to look like, what you can study, and how you should talk, and how you should act. And in a system of white supremacy, a person of color is in that childlike position. So when a black male has sexual intercourse with a white female in the system of white supremacy, he's being taken advantage of regardless of whether he thinks he is or not. He thinks he's the master of that situation, most likely. I mean, that's the general thinking. Oh, I got the real prize now. I mean, I'm equal to the white folks now because I'm in bed with this white woman, and she likes it. She likes being in bed with me. Well, the prison master may like it and all like that, but the queen having sexual intercourse with the serf, the slave is still a slave. This is how you have to look at it, because that's exactly the way that it is. Because you're in a master-slave world, the entire world, okay? So that black male is really, his mind is going little by little, or it's going at a gallop, really. Actually, he's being destroyed because he has an illusion of power that comes through the bedroom, that comes through that bedroom activity, the white vagina. I mean, the holy grail of all vaginas, the white vagina, the most important vagina in the world, in the system of white supremacy.
Do you think that illusion can also take place with black males choosing to have sex with non-black, non-white females? And I'm talking about Asians or Hispanics or Indian females, because we do have a color issue within our population or within our community, meaning that anything that is not dark skin, anything that is really not brown skin, anything that is lighter than brown, lighter than dark, or almost white is uplifted. So that illusion of power. Do you think that a black man choosing to be with a light-skinned individual, Hispanic, Asian, Indian, or what have you, do you think it can take place within those type of interactions as well?
That's a side reaction, yes. I mean, at a depth level, rather, it is. But you don't have to worry about that if the person is classified as non-white and functions as non-white, because that's how it's going to... See, the white supremacists determine who is white and who is not. So there's a dividing line there. So actually, a black male, after all, you hear the term, let's look at it like this, and I don't want to get it confused, add to the confusion, because there's plenty of it out here. You hear the expression, not as frequent as you did in past years. Somehow they kind of moved away from it, and I can see why. But a few years ago, you were hearing the expression, black people and brown people, a whole lot. You'd hear that expression, well, black and brown people. Well, let's stop and back up and look at what people look like. All right, black, brown, red, yellow, tan, beige. Most black people fit all of those descriptions. Black, brown, yellow, and somebody throws in another one called red bone, tan, beige. So when you say black and brown, and the white supremacists were using that expression, but I think they kind of backed off of it. You don't hear it as much as you did maybe about even 5 years ago, black and brown people. Most black people, even in what we call the so-called motherland, Africa, are dark brown. Most people who are classified as black are dark brown. They may look like they are black standing, in dark circumstances, and under a tree and whatnot. They walk into the sunlight. All of a sudden, you see that person that you would call jet black, when you actually look at the forehead, that's what you can start with. If the person is, say, about 20 years old and hasn't started producing gray hair, look at the forehead of that black person. You say, that's a black person. That's a sure enough black person. That's the genuine article there. That person is a sure enough black person. Look at the forehead of that person standing in the sunlight and look at the color of the hair just above the forehead. And you say, wait a minute. The hair of the forehead, the forehead of that person is not the same exact color as the hair. Now, with millions of people, that is true. But with millions and millions and millions and millions more, that's not true. That hair is jet black, and the forehead is dark brown. It's pretty close to the black, but not quite. See, so there's a contrast there. Here's something else that you may notice around a swimming pool. Different parts of the same person. It's darker than other parts. You probably haven't noticed it in California and Florida and places like that, in the islands, whatnot. But here's a person who their face is kind of dark. And then when you look at the neckline and the shoulders and the torso, it would be a lighter tone, as you might say. You probably never noticed that. The same person is different colors in different parts of the body. And here's another one that really stands out. A lot of what you call jet black people, when you look at the inside of their hands, it's not jet black. Okay? That's skin too. Or the bottom of the feet. Sometimes the bottom of the feet, if you look at a jet black person, the bottom of the feet, just a little bit below the ankle. Sometimes it's almost yellow. I don't think people have noticed that. And that's the same person. So what part of the body are you talking about when you say black, brown, red, yellow, red bone, beige, tan? But the white supremacist said, I got a word for all of you. And you know what that is? The N word. That's a political word. It doesn't have anything to do with shades of black. That shades of black is something that black people have in their minds, because that's what the white supremacists want us to have. Non-white people, all right? But they're all the N word to the white supremacists. Every last one of them. And that is a part of understanding white supremacy.
Yes, sir. Thank you for taking my call, Mr. Bobby. Thank you, Mr. Fuller, for your explanation. I really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. All righty. Going back to the term compensatory justice, Mr. Fuller, and us maybe not having a clear understanding of what you wrote in 1971, I want to bring emphasis on this term that you use even when speaking to my brother just here. You made emphasis to say, in the system of white supremacy, which is racism. Could you explain to those who are just new to the program, hearing your voice or the voice, trying to understand codification, what do you mean when you say, in the system of white supremacy, which we are a victim of and been born into?
I just mean to say that if you think of government, put the picture of a government in your mind. A government. It's a world government. It's the only world government that counts. All these other, so-called governments, Ecuador, Peru, this place, Nigeria, South Africa, these are just labels. They slap labels, and who does the label slapping? Slapping the white supremacists, because they're in the supreme position. So they come to a place and they say, "Hey, you people, let's see, what am I going to call you? I'll call you Indians." So that's what you are. And then later on, they might say, "I'll call you Native Americans." Then that's what you become. Before then, you were saying I was Iroquois, Navajo, I was Arawak, I was this, and I was that. You are what I say you are. Okay? So I say what you are. You're South African, because I said so. They say, "No, I'm Zulu." And hey, what did I say? Repeat after me. You black people with your dumb selves, repeat after me. And be what I say you are. And that's how it comes to be. And so that's what we say. So you got people who are saying, "I'm a Native American. Build a museum for me, a museum for Native Americans." And you say, "Well, wait a minute, a Native American? Well, what's a non-Native American? What is an American?" Okay, so you track that down, you find out that this thing called American is somebody named after a person. What person? Well, he was a writer. What writer? Well, he was a fellow that traveled, and his name was Amerigo. And he came over in this area of the world, and he said, "I'm going to write about it." So everybody referred to it, "Oh, you're talking about those people Amerigo wrote about." Amerigo people. And then that later on, I've been told, unless I've been misinformed, later on they called it from Amerigo and anglicized it, as they said, to American. And then that's what people, you got North Americans, South Americans, Central Americans, and you got all kinds of in-between Americans. I mean, you'll say all American. That's a football player. Well, if a football player is an all-American, what are the rest of the Americans? Are they part American? I mean, it's all over the place. So in the code book, I slam dunked it. I said an American, an African, and an Asian, all one and the same people. They are people who practice justice. And since no one practices justice or can practice justice in the system of white supremacy, no one is an American, an African, or an Asian, because you have to practice justice to be an American, an African, or an Asian. If a person mistreats people, that person is not an African, that person is not an Asian, and that person is not an American. If you mistreat someone, you are disqualified from being any one of those titles. According to what? Compensatory counter-racist logic, that's what. And according to logic, if you just stop and think about what is an American, what is an African, what is an Asian. And this is all discussed in the textbook for victims of white supremacy, too. These terms are there, the word guide, and explanations for it. And this is how you combat racism, because you seize the language. That's the first thing you do. You don't have anything else you can seize, so you seize the language, and then you take that language, whatever language it is, the English language, Spanish language, and you use the words in such a way that they reveal what? The truth. Because the truth is, you can't be an American and mistreat someone, not for 5 minutes. That's impossible. Anybody who calls themselves an American and they're in the process of mistreating somebody, they are not telling the truth. And I'm talking about you can stand on the highest mountain and say that. Nor is that person an African or an Asian. That's just a person that mistreats people. That's what that is.
Okay.
That's all you are. You ain't nothing else.
Okay. I have a question from Victor in Canada. He says this, Mr. Fuller, I wanted to know this. On page 149 in the Code Book, Revised Expanded Edition, on the fifth paragraph, so let me get back here to page 149. On the fifth paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On the fifth paragraph, quoting, regardless of what you may have been told, expect at all times to be mistreated as a result of so-called laws and or legal system that you are involved in and or subject to during the existence of the system of white supremacy, racism, end quote. Mr. Fuller, how can I persuade the government of white supremacy, which calls itself the provincial government of Canada, of its contradictions regarding due process and equal protection under the law when they criminalize non-white people based on color, meaning they consider the non-white person guilty before being presumed innocent in a court of law and or before a trial based on color. Victor from Canada. Thank you.
Oh, you can't expect justice from the white supremacists because the white supremacists are committed to non-justice. So what you do is just keep at it. Just whatever laws they allow you to have, you just keep taking their own law, the laws they say they have for each other, and keep putting it in front of their face. Why? As a prisoner of war, that's all you can do anyway when you're in their so-called courts. And they are the Supreme Court of the entire world. The system of white supremacy is the real Supreme Court. And so if you're in a situation where you're going before the court of white supremacy, you just present yourself in a manner that you are guilty of being non-white, which is criminal.
Mm-hmm.
You are a criminal as far as that's concerned. You're guilty of that. Being born non-white in the system of white supremacy is a criminal act. Okay, so you walk in already guilty of that crime. So you report that is, hey, by their law, you are a criminal. But then you say, but you didn't do this or you didn't do that. If you didn't do it, and you should try to see to it that you do not violate their laws, even though they will accuse you of having violated their laws, and there's nothing you can do but just, you might say, plead your case. Here again, I refer to the movie Shawshank Redemption. That's all Andy Dufresne kept doing. He just kept saying, I'm innocent. I'm innocent. And they kept saying, you're guilty. You're guilty. You're guilty. And you're going to do 2 life sentences. And so he just conformed to what they were saying simply because what else could he do? Nobody's coming to his rescue. That's another thing about the code. Don't look for anybody to help you do anything constructive if you're black on this planet. When somebody helps you do anything of constructive value, consider that a bonus. Now that's one of the main things that black people really have to get in mind. You're not in a helpful situation. You're a prisoner of war. Do not expect help from other prisoners of war. All right, because prisoners all over the world, you can't give each other much help. They're just individuals. So you are an individual. So you get whatever help you can. And then if you see a gate open where you can help somebody else, to do a little better than they're doing, to get a little bit more food or something like that, then you help them, as long as you don't jeopardize your own position. Because if you're not in position to help yourself, you can't help anybody else. And that's correct. That's just the law of the universe.
The law of the universe. Okay. What we're going to do here, Mr. Fuller, we're going to pause here for just a moment before we take the next caller. It's 10:30 Eastern Time here in the concept called the United States, and you are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show, also referred to CRCS, with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and I am the co-host, Mr. Bobby. Now, to get in contact with the show, you may do so by calling 516-453-9921, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. Also, as you're listening to the show on ProduceJustice.com, all the materials that are mentioned on this show can be obtained by going to ProduceJustice.com. That's ProduceJustice.com. And all the information, the latest, where the books are being sold at worldwide, and they are, all that information is right there on that site. And also to listen to previous shows and even a replay of this show, all on ProduceJustice.com. And we're going to hit that hard, ProduceJustice.com, and make sure that you get that book and make sure that you read it by going to ProduceJustice.com. Okay, Ethan is on the line. Ethan, good morning, and you are on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, Mr. Fuller and Mr. Bobby. It's an honor for me to be able to speak with you. I have one question for the moment, and that is, how do you get a victim of the system to see the code when they are successful, i.e. have amassed finances or accomplished many things? Because when you try to talk to them, the point comes up to, oh, there are many opportunities, you just haven't used them, or all it takes is hard work and dedication, and there is no system against you. How do you deal with a person like that?
With a person that does what? That last part you said?
A person who has made a considerable success, and they'll say all it takes is just hard work and dedication. There is no system against you. How do you talk to a person like that, another victim?
You always talk to people about the things that the people want to talk about, and you mostly go silent if the person is not talking about anything constructive. That's the codified way. See, the code is supposed to cover. When I say the code, I mean you do the best possible thing that a person can do, not just yourself, but any person can do in the circumstances you're in. That's what makes a code a code. You do the best possible thing. You say the best possible thing that anybody will ever say in thousands of years. See, that's what best means. It can't be better. It can't be bested. Best means that's the end of the line. So it's not real code if you're not doing the best thing that can be done or saying the best thing that can be said ever under the circumstance that you're presented with. That's why we need a code. Every black person, every person of color needs a counter-racist code so that in all circumstances, like the one you just mentioned, what do you say when a person says, well, I'm not interested in this mess you're talking about some code or some racism. I got money and whatnot. I mean, that's all I need, and all that garbage you're talking about ain't got nothing to do with nothing. Just give me some money. I can take care of everything I want to with that money that I got. If a person says that, well, he says what he or she is saying. They're saying what their code is. Code is just something that whatever people do. A culture is whatever people do. All right? So what do you do when a person says that? Then you say, oh, you don't want to talk about it? A lot of people say, I don't want to talk about that mess about some racism every time you come around me. I mean, I start talking to you about something, you start talking about, white folks this and all. I don't want to hear all that garbage. I've had that said to me. So immediately I go into code mode because I'm always in code mode, I think, or I try to be. The minute a person says they do not want to talk to you about what you want to talk about, then that means you go silent. And if you say anything, you say, okay, what is it that you want to talk about?
Mm-hmm.
That's the procedure.
Okay.
And do that. Don't argue. Don't argue. Black people should get away from arguments altogether and have
Agreed.
conversations. What's the difference between an argument and a conversation? I'm going to repeat it again. The difference between an argument and a conversation is an argument is designed to win arguments. That's your objective. You're just trying to win the argument. A conversation is designed to solve problems. And how do you go about having a conversation rather than an argument? You just ask questions. And what is the question that you ask? It's 4 of them. And these are listed in the textbook for victims of racism on page 171 and 172 in the revised expanded edition. What do you want to do? Or you can say, what do you want me to do? What do you want to do, or what do you want me to do? That's the first question. Second question, why do you want me to do it? Third question, how do you plan for me to do what you want me to do? You want me to do it, you must have a plan. So how do you plan for me to do it? And the fourth question, that's the loaded one, the bottom line question. What do you expect the constructive result to be? So if a person says, for example, I don't want to talk about racism, you say, okay, what do you want to talk about? Why do you want to talk about that? How do you plan for us to talk about it? And what do you expect the constructive result to be? Now, these are 4 universal questions that fit anybody, anywhere, having a conversation, any time of day or night, anywhere on the planet. Here again, it's on page 171 and 172. These are universal questions having to do with what? One word, W-A-N-T-S, wants. Everybody has a want every minute of every day that they are breathing and not asleep. If you're awake and you're breathing, which you have to be breathing to be awake, you want something. That's every creature, every bird. That bird flies from one limb to another based on a want. So you, first of all, if you're having a conversation, because that's something black people have to learn to do. We have arguments all the time. Arguments should be banned altogether by having conversations. And you can go to these 4 things, and that will keep you in the conversation lane. And it will always have, theoretically, I've tested as far as I could test it. Every time I stay on that point and do it, it works. See, code is about doing what works, never doing anything that doesn't work. That's code.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Try that. The 4 wants. Go immediately. If it looks like it's heading toward an argument, go to what do you want me to do? Or what do you want to do? Those 4 questions on page 171, 172. They fit any situation, anywhere, at any time, in conversations, and staying out of the argument lane and staying in the conversation lane. It'll take everybody right where they should be. Maybe not where they want to go, but it'll take everybody right where they should be.
All righty. Okay, Ethan.
Yes,
all right. Thank you so much for your call, Ethan.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay. Since we are on there, Mr. Fuller, and you mentioned or emphasized this, this is why it is important, and I'm emphasizing this, that we ascertain that book, your book, by going to Produce Justice, so that if we forget or are not sure of something, we can continually reference that book as you just did on pages 171 and 172, so we can go back to stay on codes, to stay on code. And since we are on there, let me take this opportunity to have you talk about your book that you can get by going to producejustice.com.
Go to producejustice.com, and everything is right there. Producejustice.com. And I have that term. I thought that was a term to use, even for the website. Why? Because that's the one thing that is missing. It's called a compensatory code. Compensatory means what? Making up for what's missing. Like unemployment compensation, all right?
Yes.
The word compensation, making up for what's missing. And what's missing among the people of the entire planet? A system of justice. Meaning what? Meaning if you've got a system of justice, no one is mistreated. That sounds like a wonderful deal. You're never going to get mistreated. And then the second part of it is when you need constructive help, you will get it. Now, that's a wonderful world. That's a world, hey, Louis Armstrong. Yeah, what a wonderful world that would be. Okay? Yes, that's what we need. Not a world dominated by racism or any other kind of ism that includes mistreating people. Stop embracing that. But this book is about producing justice. You get it by going to producejustice.com. Eliminate racism, eliminate all forms of mistreatment, because racism is about mistreating people deliberately.
Mm-hmm.
Go to producejustice.com, and what will come up on the screen is a method for ordering the book that gives suggestions. They're just suggestions. It's not dictatorship. Anything that doesn't make sense to you when you read it, pass it by. If it doesn't make sense, it's got to make sense to the reader. And it's got to be something that the reader can use. If you see something that you can't use, or if you can't use any part of it, just cast it aside or give it to someone else, I would recommend. Go to producejustice.com. Everything is right there.
Yeah, it's real simple because when you get a new automobile or an automobile, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Fuller, I do believe they give you what they call an owner's manual, a book. Why do they give that book out, Mr. Fuller?
So that when you get in that car, you just don't start having a whole bunch of problems that you can't solve, that you understand how that car functions. So I say if you don't understand white supremacy, what it is and how it works, but you got to deal with white supremacy, you're in hot water right there, big time.
Right
of course, you're in hot water anyway. But if you know what you're dealing with, if you're in the hot water, born in the hot water, you learn something about the hot water that you're in. That is logical. So everything in a textbook for victims of white supremacy is supposed to be logical and what to do about it without having to check with anybody. Just you do it because what? It's in line with logic. It's an owner's manual.
Yes.
Right.
This is why I asked that question in that particular way. Okay, let's go to James. James, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Fuller, I have a question I want to ask you regarding, I think it's the 9th area of activity, which is war and counter-war. And I'm not going to answer this question because I particularly want to imply that I agree or disagree with what you have written regarding that area of activity. But I would just like to get some constructive feedback regarding some things I've been thinking about regarding that. And my question goes like this. If a lion was surrounded and attacked by a pack of vicious hyenas, yet was able to defy the odds against him and kill his natural enemies, would his natural instincts lead him to take his own life because he thwarted the efforts of his would-be murderers?
Ask that question again because I didn't understand it.
Okay, I'll slow down. If a lion was surrounded and attacked by a pack of vicious hyenas, yet he was able to defy the odds against them and killed his natural enemies, would his natural instinct lead him to take his own life because he was able to thwart the efforts of his would-be murderers?
Okay, the answer
I'm talking about a
is...
lion. I'm talking about a lion that lives in Africa. When we're talking about natural instincts.
The natural instinct is protection, correct? If I understand the question.
Yes, sir.
You protect yourself. And once you protect yourself, then you protected yourself in order to persevere, in order to still be here and go on and do whatever you do. So that's correct. And it says so in the textbook, in war. When you are attacked directly, somebody jump out from behind the bushes, I don't care who it is or what it is, you defend yourself. You decimate the attacker. No, that's logic. That's what you have to do according to the code. That's what you're supposed to do. And you do not harm yourself after that. That's why you protected yourself in the first place. But here's what the code says, and a lot of people miss this part in the ninth area of activity, the war part. And I don't discuss that in detail because I say go to the book itself, because that's a long, drawn-out affair of how that's got to be done.
And also, I don't want either one of us to say anything that might cause us trouble. That's why I asked that question in the way I asked it.
Yes, it might be misinterpreted. That's why. Hello, go ahead.
That's why I asked that question using that analogy of a lion in Africa. Because a lion has basic instincts to conduct itself in a certain manner if and when it is attacked. However, after having read some information about the ninth area of war and counter-war regarding, I think it's called maximum compensatory
maximum emergency compensatory action.
Yes, sir. The way I understood it was under those circumstances, a person, if they were going to act in accordance with your suggestion, would have to take their own life also.
That's what I think I tried to clear up. And that's why I don't want anybody, I want to clear it up now if I'm going to talk about it at all. It means you always defend yourself against direct attack, okay? In which case you do not take your own life after having done that, defending yourself from direct attack. But if you willfully and deliberately go out and kill someone else, willfully and deliberately, hunt them down, even though they have mistreated you or they're in the process of mistreating you. I mean, you're not dead, you're still here and all like that. And you decide you can't take any more of the mistreatment anymore, and you willfully and deliberately go and the person is not directly attacking you, not killing you, not standing over you with a axe trying to split your skull right at this minute. In fact, they whipped you 2 days ago or something like that as a slave, and you have gotten to the place you don't want to take another whipping, and you've decided that you are going to take this person out of this universe by killing that person, then that is the maximum emergency compensatory action. When you go and hunt the person down and kill the person, then you are obligated to kill yourself, according to the code. Why? Because you're going to answer to the people who didn't approve of what you did. And the code says once you kill people, you don't apologize for nothing, ever. No one should kill anybody and apologize. I mean, even the black people out here every day who are killing each other. Don't you get in that court and apologize or try to act like somebody else did it when you did it. You should stand up and say, yes, I killed him, and if he was alive right now, I'd kill him again. And what are you going to do about it? Or do whatever you want to about it, because I did what I was going to do. See, killing is serious business. And black people should be the pioneers, maybe the first ones in the world, of being the pioneers in taking killing of one person of another absolutely serious, because we play with death just like the white supremacists do. And that nonsense should stop. Anybody who kills anybody should stand by their work. And naturally, if someone, in most places in the world, or a lot of places in the world, when you kill somebody willfully and deliberately and unjustly, or what they say is unjustly, they're going to kill you. So that puts you in position of pleading for your life. You don't plead for your life when you kill people, logically speaking. Why? One death calls for another one. You kill someone, you say, I'm willing to go with you wherever you are going. That's why I killed you, to show that I am sincere about this. I ain't playing. You should be dead. That's why I killed you. You should be dead. And to prove how dead you should be, I'm willing to prove to the world I'm willing to go with you being dead, wherever dead goes. Because it's just that serious. Because I don't play with death. You might be playing with death, all right, by the people that you have killed. That's what you say to that person in your mind, because you don't say nothing when you kill them. The code outlines all this. That's why I say I don't go into details, all right? When you make up your mind you're going to kill somebody willfully and deliberately, you don't make no speeches. You ain't trying to teach no lessons. Lesson time should have been when the talking was going on, all right? When the talking breaks down and you decide it's killing time, it is killing time. But you go with the person because you want to always send that message that killing is serious. And you don't kill somebody and apologize for killing somebody you willfully kill. You apologize for somebody you killed in an accident, all right, in a car accident and whatnot. But you don't apologize for willfully and killing willfully and deliberately. And it should add unjustly. The only reason you kill somebody is because that person has done something unjust. All right?
Well, I wouldn't want to kill anybody.
Otherwise, you got no business killing them anyway. Right.
Wouldn't want
That's
to kill
why I
anybody.
say I don't like to
I
talk
just want
about
a clarification
this.
because, your ideas, since I've been introduced to them, have really made a positive impact in my life, and I want to make sure that I have a clear understanding of what it is.
Yes, that's why I don't talk about it.
And acting on it.
I'm up against the clock now. Right. I'm up against
sir.
the clock now, but I want to make that clear. That's why I don't talk about maximum emergency compensatory action very much. I did more on this program than I have on most programs, and I'm not willing to go further than that because I want the person to read the details. That's a very thick segment of the book, and it's very precise. So it won't be misunderstood about what this means. Because when you start talking about killing people, I mean, there's killing going on as we speak right now all over the world. The glamorization of killing has to be something of the past. So we want to take all of the glamour out of it, every bit of it. Everything associated with glorifying killing has got to go, along with the system of white supremacy. When it goes.
I agree. Thank you.
All right, James, thank you. Mr. Fuller, would that include the Oscar statue, which you pointed out, which I had been looking at that for years and never knew that standing right next to that statue was a sword.
The what?
I said, does that include the Oscar statue? Because I didn't know until I got into the compensatory concept that standing right next to the statue of Oscar or whatever that is was a sword. I never knew that, never saw it until it was pointed out.
The Oscar itself has got the sword right in front of their private parts because the statue is naked.
Yes.
So, in other words, now the private parts of a person is designed to do what? Reproduce.
Reproduce, yes.
All right, so here you have a statue called an Oscar that you award people for making movies, all kinds of movies, by the way, and whatnot. And this is the symbol for it, a naked person with a replacement for the phallus or the vagina, because I don't know whether Oscar is male or female. I tend to believe it's male. And so he's replacing his phallus with a sword. The phallus is designed to be instrumental in reproducing people. The sword is designed to eliminate people.
Kill people, yeah.
And you see swords all over the place associated with statues of people. You see generals on horseback and whatnot. Many of them, are pointing a sword at the sky. Well, who are they going to kill? God? What is that all about? Why everybody's got a sword? Why is it that when you're going to become a knight, Knight, that someone is going to bless you as a knight with a sword? A sword?
On both shoulders.
Some blessing.
Yeah. Wow. Heavy. Wow. Well, it's been quite interesting. Again, this is why we have or encourage people to get the publication, get the book, so that you can refer to it for different information, particularly that last area of people activity. Read it over and over and over until you get the maximum understanding of just what that is and how serious that is that Mr. Fuller has put in the book. Mr. Fuller, we have about a minute and a half remaining in the program. Before we say our thank yous and goodbyes until next week, is there a particular something that you may want to say, want to emphasize before we go off the air? This would be the space that we would design for you to have your say here.
Well, codify everything. That's what I'm telling people. A lot of people say, well, Fuller, you ain't got this in the code and you ain't got that in the code. Code just means, that's a generic term. It means anything that you do and say should have a constructive effect. If it has a constructive effect, that is code. That's all you need. anybody on the planet. You are writing code anytime you do anything that has a constructive effect. That's automatically a part of the code. I mean, if you do it once, twice, 3 times, and it always has a constructive effect, that's solid code.
That's
Doesn't
solid
get any better
code.
than that.
Okay.
That's it.
Well, until next week, this has been the Counter Racist Code Show, CRCS would be the acronym for that, with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and I am the co-host, Mr. Bobby. We will see you next week. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
Thank you.